Hello? You can hear me? Okay,
I can hear you, Carla.
thank you.
How's this?
Just a delay.
Yeah, let me change my background. We are going to tax the Wi-Fi. Okay, let's see. Emily, I'm ready when you are. That's not annoying.
We're ready.
Okay, so we're going to call to order the regular meeting Tuesday, October 12th, 2021, 6:01 p.m. Roll call, please.
Miss Caroline Shamshi Basha
Am I not?
here. Miss Carla Bloxson.
Here.
Also here, Mr. Brendan Lynch.
Present.
Mr. Drew Bartlett.
Here.
Miss Leah Furch.
Here.
And Mr. Brent Whitfield.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Okay, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God,
under God.
indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
Why? This is having some technical issues here. My microphone's working, but the earpiece isn't. Okay. No, even when others. Oh, there you go. Thank you, sir. Okay, perfect. Okay, David, would you please swear in Caroline?
Certainly, David Tolles, Board Attorney. Ms. Shamsi Basha, can you raise your right hand and repeat after me? I do solemnly swear or affirm
I do solemnly swear or affirm
that I,
that I,
and state your name,
Caroline Basha,
will support, protect, and defend
will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and government
the Constitution and government
of the United States and of the state of Florida
of the United States and of the state of Florida
against all enemies, domestic or foreign,
against all enemies, domestic or foreign,
that I will bear true faith, loyalty, and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith, loyalty, and allegiance to the same,
and that I am entitled to hold office under the Constitution
and that I am entitled to hold office under the Constitution
and the Charter of the City of Lake Worth
and the Charter of the
Beach.
City of Lake Worth
Beach, and that I will faithfully perform all the duties of the office
and that I will faithfully perform all the duties of the office
of appointed member of the Lake Worth Beach Community Redevelopment Agency,
of appointed member of the Lake Worth Beach Community Redevelopment Agency,
on which I am about to enter, so help me God.
on which I am about to enter, so help me God.
Congratulations, and just sign that form and provide it to Emily when you're done with your meeting. Thank you very much, and welcome.
Yes. All right. Okay, thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Okay, in terms of the agenda, are there any additions, deletions, or reordering to be considered? Seeing none? We'll
Mr.
move on.
Chair?
Oh, yes.
This is just a suggestion, but I was thinking perhaps we want to add a discussion item to talk about future meetings and whether or not we want to continue using Zoom.
Looks like we have consensus to add that to, can we
Oh,
make that
okay.
action item F?
Sure.
Any other additions, deletions, or reordering? Seeing none, move on to public comment on non-agenda items. Emily, any comment?
No comments.
Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. I would like to pull B for further discussion. Any other? No? Okay. I move, I can't really make the motion, so.
So I would just have a motion to approve item A, and then you can go to B, once that item is
Okay.
passed.
This is Brent. I'll move to approve consent item A.
Second? Second? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And
Pretend
just for the
gavel.
record, that was seconded by Board Member Furch.
Yes.
Okay. So David, do I pass the gavels and make a motion or?
Because you pulled the item, if you want to.
We don't
just-
need to make a motion.
Not at this point. If
Okay.
you just want to bring up the discussion, and then at some point in time, you can make the motion.
Understood. Thank you.
Board member.
Okay, so action, so that B will move to action agenda item G. Okay, onto the action agenda. We are on A, nomination of chair position. Joan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So every 2 years around August, September, we usually nominate and send that nomination of a chair and a vice chair over to the city commission for approval. It kind of slipped by us this year and just realizing it after Mark Rickards left us that we needed to do a chair and a vice chair nomination to send over. So at this time, I ask that the board make a motion to nominate first a new chair.
This is Brent. I'd like to nominate Brendan to continue as the chair.
Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Do
So
I have to go to
Brendan,
public? Oh,
yeah, so I know this has to go to the commission for approval. Do they usually just consent those, or, so that's not going to be anything? Okay,
It never has been an issue, no.
I don't think I've done anything to upset anybody. We'll find out. Okay, do I go to public? No, okay, okay. All those in favor, please say so by saying aye.
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 Opposed? None. Okay, thank you. And thank you.
Thank you.
Brendan, who seconded the motion?
Leah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, on to action agenda item B. Nomination of a vice chair.
So at this time, we're in need of a vice chair to serve a 2-year term, not only because Mark Rickards left, but because he had finished up his 2-year term. So at this point, we'll take a motion for a new vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Brent.
Thank you, Carla.
I'll second that. This is true.
We have a motion from Carla and a second from Drew. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please state so by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Congrats.
I don't think I can fill Mark's shoes, but I'll try.
On to, yes. Oh, thank you. Yes. Okay, actually, yes, I think we should consider doing that. Is everybody okay with that? Do we need a formal motion to, okay, we're going to move G, which is the former consent agenda B item, to the next item on our action agenda.
Great.
I can start, or unless Joan, you want to kick us off.
Sure. So I think it was last Tuesday's city commission meeting, the city commission voted 4-1 to move forward with the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council interlocal, which calls for planning services, specifically kind of like a mini master plan for the downtown, focusing on the 2 assemblages that the city and the CRA have put together over the last 4 or 5 years. And it's coming back to our board because we were the ones who have to fund it. And I also just wanted to say the executive director of the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, Tom Lanahan, is on the line. If you have any questions or comments, or if you would like him to say something, he's right here for us.
Thank you, Joan. I wanted to pull this, and first I want to say thank you to Joan and to Drew for attending that meeting. I was on Zoom because I had a sick household, so I thought it best to not come in person with the kids home from school for several days, and so I did listen to the whole thing, and they even gave me an opportunity to speak. My concern is that the recording of the motion doesn't reflect the discussion. So it carried 4-1. I'll give them that, but I didn't end the call thinking, oh, wow, this is going to be great. We're finally going to figure out this situation and go hand in hand towards a solution that makes sense for the whole of the community. I left that feeling like if they were paying, it wouldn't have gotten approved. And that's not what I wanted to feel at the end of a very long, very, very long meeting. So that was, I just wanted to kind of bring that back as feedback. That was my feeling. Drew, you might have felt differently, and that's perfectly fine. I don't, we didn't talk obviously, but I feel like it's a big expense, and I would have liked to have felt like everybody was going to come together on this thing. I didn't feel that way.
Yeah, so I was there, and I wasn't there at first, and I watched the meeting and all the things that they were discussing before I got there, and then I got there and watched the discussion, and the feeling when you're in the room is a whole lot different than the feeling when you're watching it, because you can see their faces and the thoughtfulness in their faces, and when they're hearing Herman, hearing each other, there's a lot more engagement than you can tell on
Sure.
Zoom. And so I felt like the ones that voted for it felt like that it was their path to getting something going.
Okay.
And if they didn't pass it forward, I felt like they were empty-handed. They didn't have a real way to tackle the issue, because you could see them getting visibly frustrated with the no vote, and obviously the no vote was getting visibly frustrated with the others. So you could see it in their body language. There's a lot more buy-in to it than you can tell from their language. Just And so when I got home and talked to my wife about it, it's like, because she watched it online and she was just pulling her hair out. But I watched it, in person. I said they were a lot more engaging in person because you could see it. It was, so I left very grateful that they approved it, because I felt like they did put themselves in a position to embrace it. I do think that they did. So for us to sort of go back on that sort of agreement, it wouldn't be very good, for the four that fought for it. They would have a hard time with that. But I think that they are now in a position to, when whatever comes back to them, they've put themselves out there to need to consider it very seriously and strongly. That was I could see, if I were not in the room, I could see where you would get that impression. I could.
Yeah.
But you could see the thoughtfulness.
I really appreciate that feedback. So I pulled it from consent, kind of hoping to hear something like that, because I also feel like we are and we can, but not really in a position to not go forward. It's a big expense and it deserved more than consent.
Yeah.
I definitely can't say that the end result is going to be this clear path forward.
I would agree.
The work that Treasure Coast does could end up in a binder on a shelf and later thrown away. But I'm hopeful, so.
I do think that, and I appreciate that. I would have the same sort of worry. I do think it will take this board pushing it still, when it comes back, to get it to, when the mayor participates, say we need to get it agenda. We need, I do think that would still be necessary.
Yeah, agreed. Okay. All right. Further discussion? Okay, let's
Brendan, I'd just like to, so I think we have Mr. Lanahan on the call here to probably address this, but I think the point that you guys have just made is really critical to convey to Mr. Lanahan and really get some maybe insight from him on what his perspective is going forward, knowing that our fear is we don't want a binder that's on the shelf and gets thrown away. We want an RFP that the commission, this board, residents, all more or less agree on, not everything we want, but more or less agree on. And most importantly, a developer will respond to and want to build a project. And so I'm just curious, knowing that the vote wasn't unanimous and that there was maybe some contention in the discussion, and looking forward at the scope of services, if you could talk a little bit about how you think we should move forward and what recommendations you have for us as a board.
Thank you. If I might, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Go ahead. Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the question. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. I'll start off with I'm pinch hitting a little bit for Dana Little, who would normally be here, but I will share with you what he and I have been talking about on this. First off, it is often the role of the Regional Planning Council to come into situations that are complex, that are controversial, that have a history to them. We normally don't get the phone call when everybody's already all getting along and already knows what to do. So that's usually when we get called, hey, come help us. And that's great. That gives us good opportunities. Dana has had conversations with the mayor and all of the city council members about this this proposal. I know he had a challenging conversation with Councilman Robinson about his concerns and how to address them. One of the hallmarks of the work that we do is, reach out to everyone, talk to everyone that is willing to come and speak with us about these things. That interview process that takes place before we launch into the effort really does inform the work that we do. And, we're looking for where are those points of conflict, but really also where are those points of agreement, and where can we find common ground in there to draw up a document. Mr. Whitfield, we also agree that we don't like creating plans that are going to sit on a shelf. We have a lot of plans that are on a shelf, but they're also being implemented in different places. That is far from our goal. We want to see good things happen. We have a long history with Lake Worth. We've been very involved in this community for a long, long time. Back to, helping widen the sidewalks the very first time that happened in the downtown. There was some charrette work that we did for that long before me, but we did do that. So I think one of the key products of this thing is developing that RFP to put out to get these properties moving forwards again. Start to recoup some of that investment the CRA has made in them, and help them be more productive for the rest of the success of that downtown. And we're going to look, ordinarily clients get frustrated because we won't stay inside the bounded lines that they give us for the parcels to look at. So we will go and look at that other stuff and walk around down there, spend more time in the community. We've done a fair bit of work relatively recently there with the design guidelines, which caused us to be all over the community doing that work. So hopefully that addressed your question. If there's anything else I can add to that, please let me know if you need some more.
One thing I'd like to add is I think the workshop, I think we're planning to have a joint workshop, right, between the commission and the board. I think that is something that's on the table. Maybe I'm
Yes.
wrong. I think so. I don't have the scope in front of me. I think the timing of when that workshop occurs and making sure that, I think that's really what I'm looking to the Treasure Coast folks to do and Dana to do, is really make sure that when that workshop occurs, we're primed, all the right information is set up, and we don't end up kind of coming in from two different directions and leaving in two different directions, that there's enough understanding and enough information kind of shared that everybody knows what the expectations will be. And I really hope that, to me, is going to be a pivotal moment. And if our expectations are in the right place and everybody's on a similar page and that discussion is productive, that feels like it'll be a big part of getting us over the hump. So I'm not a professional in this arena, so I look for you guys to show us what we can do to help facilitate it, and to the timing of that workshop and what leads up to it, to make sure it's a success.
Yeah, if I could, that's an excellent point. And an ill-timed or unprepared workshop can be more destructive than productive. So that's excellent feedback there, and we'll certainly keep that in mind as we go forward. And we have a schedule in the agreement, but I think a key to know there is that we're flexible as the process goes along, and if one of the stages needs a little more time or isn't quite ready, or we want to reorient some things, we can certainly do that. It's about getting to the best finished product we can. So
Just one quick question. Could you just comment again? And I've heard this referenced previously, but the financial feasibility of a project, in that, tell me the steps to get to a place where we basically know that a project like this with this many units is the only thing that's going to work. And is that done in a range, or how is that approached? Because that is my biggest concern, that we get to you know, where we put this thing out there and every single developer in the United States is like, not us, you know, so can you comment on that?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
flipping back and forth between my Zoom and the scope document that I have here. So let me
Sure.
just glance and refresh myself with that.
That was a critical part of the scope.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, so one of the things that we will do is it is a that analysis is a kind of a dynamic back and forth while there's because in looking at the piece of property there is based on the site and you know, site constraints and neighborhood compatibility and code issues and those sorts of things. There are certain things that you can and can't do on the piece of property, and there's, you know, a whole host of those. So we will develop some of those things, and then in consultation with our economists, we'll work with them on, okay, well, do these make sense? You know, which of these makes sense from a you know, cost per unit and market prices and things like that, construction costs, things of that nature. And then that will then feed back into the design again of, okay, that's too tall, or that's, you know, you need a little bit more of this and those sorts of things. It's a little bit of a back and forth process that takes place there. And these are, you know, informed by, you know, real market numbers and things of that nature to derive what is, what's going to be feasible or not, so that you all are not, like one of the members here just said, you know, putting out something that all you're going to get, you know, all you're going to hear is crickets when you put it out on the street, because it's, you know, so restrictive that nobody can ever make that that work, or whatever it might be. And it'll also, you know, help inform the, you know, where does the price of the land work in that whole scenario, you know, on a whole scale from, you know, God help us, free to, you know, even better, you know, market plus, whatever it might be. I can't really tell you at this point, but that's kind of how that would go down.
The concern here is that we put the RFP out without putting limitations other than the zoning and present land use. And we came back with a project that was, well, there were several responses, but the project wasn't acceptable to the community, resulting in litigation and other problems. But if this was private land, there'd be a whole nother mess. The only reason that we're even here is that it's held by the CRA, because if it was private land, they would be able to build what they want. So that's what needs to be worked through.
They'd be busy fighting their way through the development approval process and potentially getting denied, potentially suing, blah, 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 right? All the good times that happen.
Right. Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, we have a.
Yeah, I'd like to move for approval of the, or do I need to move for Brendan to be able to, the chair to be able to sign the interlocal agreement? Okay, so move approval for the chair to sign the interlocal agreement between the CRA and the City Commission to move forward with the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council downtown planning services scope.
I'll second.
Motion by Brent, second by Drew. Any further discussion? Public comment? Emily? Joan?
Forgive me, I was muted.
No,
There's no
there's
Oh,
public.
that's right. Okay, thank you. Okay, all those in favor, please state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank
Thank you,
you,
Tom.
you.
Mr. Lanahan.
Thank you very much. Good to see you all.
Thank you.
You
Take
too.
care. Okay. Oh boy, where am I? Sorry, I got too many things open. We are on to action agenda item. I guess we're gonna call that B. Oh, that's right. We're deleting that, so that we're on the facade grant. 120 South Dixie Highway. Chris, thanks.
Hi, good evening. For the record, Chris DeBrose with the Lake Worth Beach CRA. October 1st, we reopened our grant period, the CRA grant period to accept commercial grant applications for facade, interior improvement, and signage grants for our small businesses and medium-sized businesses. So far, we've received a lot of interest. There's a lot of good projects that are coming our way, a lot of new businesses that are really interested, and you'll hopefully see those over the next couple months. So the grant period is now open from October 1st to June 1st, and we already received our first facade grant application last week or a week and a half ago. This is for 120 South Dixie Highway. If you're not familiar with it, it's the blue building that's been sitting empty or vacant for the past probably 10 to 15 years, sitting at the entrance of our downtown, right on the east side of the road, just north of the subway on South Dixie. Was a light industrial, semi-industrial building for the past 85 years, but as we said, it's been empty. It's been purchased by the Peters family. It was purchased about 5 years ago, and he submitted an application to try to do something with the building to make it more leasable. And his plan is to open up the building, the front of the building, knocking down the concrete walls, putting in new hurricane impact windows to hopefully be able to lease it out to some sort of office, retail space that could be used. Because again, it's been sitting vacant, and his biggest complaint is because of the way it's set up right now with those little slat windows that you can really not see out of. It's just been hard to lease for him. So his request through this grant application was for construction costs of about $25,000, which would be to, again, knock out the walls along the facade along Dixie Highway, put in the new windows, and also improve doors if necessary. Staff reviewed the application. We're recommending a matching grant amount of $13,750 that would be paid to him if the project is done within the next year. Done by code, I'll require the permits for it, and eventually closed out. I believe Mr. Peters is on the phone. I'm not sure.
Hi, Chris. It's Ariana Peters. I'm
hey,
here. I'm
Ariana's
on
here.
my husband's computer, so it says Matthew Poppins.
We got you. Thanks. So if you guys have any questions for either myself or Ariana, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Is there a motion and then discussion? Or do you want to have direct questions with the property owner?
I'll make a motion. We can discuss it.
Okay.
I guess I'll move approval of staff recommendation for the facade grant 120 South Dixie Highway and amount request.
Yes, I have a question. As I understand, this property has been vacant for the past 5 years. And so,
We need to either get a second or die.
oh, okay, I'm sorry. Second,
Okay, second.
second. Now we can have discussion.
Sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
Okay. Now, if the property has been vacant for the past 5 years, do you actually have a use for the property, or are you just fixing up the facade?
So we have a lot of interest in the property, and this has been a deterrent because it is very costly to open up that front. So we decided we want to go ahead and do it ourselves. We've had a lot of different retail businesses interested. We own the neighboring building next door, so we have a lot of parking overflow in the back because we own that lot as well. So we're not really worried about, we don't have a specific interest at this moment or specific tenant in mind, but this has been a deterrent. So we're hopeful that as soon as we do this, the interest will be there and we'll fill it pretty quickly.
So you're really we're just providing you the money to aid you to sell the building, not necessarily to have a personal use for the building. Is that correct?
So we own a bunch of properties in the downtown and we lease them out. So we don't sell them. We're hoping to upgrade the facade of this building and put a new tenant in that will bolster that downtown area.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
I think to Carla's point, we could invest this along with the property owner in this building.
Brendan, you're muted. Sorry.
Sorry, everybody in the room can hear me. I was saying to Carla's point, we could invest alongside the property owner, and this building could sit empty for another 5 years. Is the point? And you know, I have my own concerns with this type of investment from the CRA's perspective, because you know this was bought the way it is, and now we're going to use public money to improve it, but it wasn't like it was an unknown issue, or it was purchased knowing that the facade was the way it is. So, you know, my preference would be a little different on these grants. You know, the owner can go and secure a line of credit. They own a substantial amount of properties. They've received many other grants from the CRA. You know, it's at some point it goes from an assistance to improve the buildings in Lake Worth to a business model, you know, where you buy something and you put your hand out for public money to improve it. And I don't know that we want to, and this is my opinion, I don't know that we want to be part of that model.
Am I able to speak?
Yeah, if you want to address that, that's fine.
Okay, so I'd like to address that. So we have never taken a grant for ourselves. The way this is set up, as I'm sure you're aware, it's your program, is that we have to go for this grant, but we always give it directly to the tenant. So this was the first one that we would be doing that was for us. Other than that, it's been for the tenant, and we simply, you know, fill out this application for them, and the money is then given directly to the business, which is in the downtown of Lake Worth, and which brings traffic and, you know, new clientele. This particular instance, we purchased this building and it was a manufacturing for, I believe it was furniture for many, many years. And now the city does not allow industrial use on Dixie Highway. So we have a ton of retail businesses that are dying to get into the downtown, but this, since it was set up as an industrial building, industrial businesses are not allowed, which is what it is really perfect for. So in order for us to upgrade that front, that is why we are going for this grant, so that we can do that and then put in all of these retail businesses that are really itching to get into the downtown.
As a point of clarification, I thought that we had given a grant to the Peters Group for the beauty salon facility, right? And I thought that was not for a tenant. Now, we did give a grant to a tenant of Peters at the old South Shore restaurant, which fell through, but that was for a tenant. But I thought the beauty salon, or is that because it was an interior that the distinction is being made?
The beauty suites is correct. We are the tenant. So we usually don't become the tenant. Our family is the tenant. So we actually did the entire build out and operate that business.
The only
That might
grant that
be why we
Brett,
would not pick up on that distinction, because it's the same person.
Yeah,
The only grant that we've paid out to the Peters so far is for the beauty suites.
Okay.
I will say that in my opinion, I will go on the record and say that while I may or may not support this, I haven't decided. I will say that this is not, I do not favor this becoming part of the model, whether it's your tenant because you're not willing to give TI money. They put their hand out, or it's you putting money hand out for a facade grant. It's the same to me. Eventually it's part of the model, and it shouldn't be. It should be kind of like this, because we have, and I'm not coming down on you per se. I'm saying this because we have limited resources, and when I see the same applicant coming in front of us, it concerns me because we have very limited resources, and that's not the purpose of this. So, and this is me speaking just as one board member, so others may feel differently, but I just want to put that on the table. Anybody else?
But Chairman, you are just so much more sophisticated about all this, right, than I ever will be. And so I absolutely appreciate your point. Because I worry. So the, I mean, but from sort of a feeling standpoint, if you will, you know, I'd love for that building to look different, right? So, you know, it's like, if this doesn't go through, how much longer is it going to sit like that and just be vacant? So it's the tug between, yeah, that doesn't seem like a right business model for us to support, but at the same time, this place needs that upgrade. So I could go back and forth on it.
I definitely appreciate what you're saying. I just wanted to, I've been feeling this way since the last time I saw the same applicant, and I just needed to get that out. That's where I'm coming from. Because I will say with confidence that I'm unlikely to support something if it came in front of us again, as one vote. Any other?
Did you want to come in? I'll say I made the motion with the similar mindset of Drew, but I sympathize with your perspective, Brendan. I'm getting like a feedback. It's crazy.
You can mute yourself if
I-
you're not speaking. That would be wonderful. Thank you. Sorry, Brent.
No, it's fine. So in my mind, the Peters Group owns a lot of the properties in the city of Lake Worth, especially along our commercial corridors. And so in some way or another, I feel like we're going to end up being partners with them somehow or another. I also agree that I don't want that partnership to be, we have a bucket of money they can swing by on their way to upgrading a building and pick up the $25,000. But I do see it as an investment in a building stock, which is in our commercial corridors, and that will, you know, the Peters family holds their properties generally, but if they sold it, it would be an investment that endured past. They would realize an investment benefit, which, you know, you can feel a different kind of way. But in my opinion, from what I hear from Chris, we don't get tons of really great applications, and some of them, although we approve them, don't actually finish construction and complete and check out. So that's the reason I support it. I 100% agree with you that if the same applicants come to us again and again, we may want to consider what this model looks like, because we don't want it just to be for people that understand how to check our boxes and pick up a check. So I agree with you.
Well, I understand sorry,
Yeah,
can I? So while I understand the reticence, when you have a group that is fairly enthusiastically participating in downtown, and we don't have a restriction in the grant in terms of how many can one property owner get for various properties, on the face of it, it looks like a good improvement to me. I'm with Drew. I've driven past this building for a decade, and I mean, aside from being a building, there's not a lot to recommend it. So I'd like to see improvement to it. I'd like to see improvement to that part of Dixie Highway. So, thank you.
Okay, further discussion, public comment, Emily?
There are no comments.
Okay, all those in favor, please state so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay.
Go
Thanks,
forward
guys.
and do well. Thank you. All right. Oh, man. Okay, on to Executive Director's Annual Review. Okay. I guess, Joan, do you want to read your own?
Sure, let's do this awkwardness again this year. Yeah, so the board approved a contract for me last year. I believe it was a 3-year contract, but in the contract it specifically states that every year on my anniversary, which is actually in August, the board will give me an annual review and also recommend compensation, whether that's the CPI or a minimum of 3%. So included in your packet is the actual agreement and all the agreements going back all the way to 2008, I believe. And also the CPI and just some information from last year's approval. So it's up to you whether you want to go one by one or.
CPI is tough this year.
It's been all over the place.
Yeah. I know I have some commercial properties and we were looking at that on the increases. So as you know, Joan, and I'm speaking as one board member, I personally hate the filling out the evaluation form, whether it be the one we've used previously or some version of that.
That's why we got rid of it.
Thank you. Oh, I'm getting smiles around, so that I think it was a good call. So I don't know. So when does this need to be done? Like when is there a
Quite
by the
honestly,
end-
it
the
should
end
have
of
been
our
done in
fiscal?
August.
Our
And we
fiscal's
just,
already over.
yeah, we just had, too many other pressing items and, it does take a while. So we kind of pushed it to the next meeting and then unfortunately pushed it to this meeting. So it's up to you whether you want to discuss it tonight or not. We can certainly do it at the next meeting if you want. But we put it on this one because the agenda wasn't too big.
Okay. I think the challenge here is, obviously there isn't a recommendation, so we need to do a little more heavy lifting than we're used to because we're fortunate to have good staff that make recommendations that we nearly always are able to support. Here we have to form our own. So if we're feeling collectively in a position to make that recommendation, given the resources provided, then I'm okay to move forward today as an individual voter. If we think we would like to table for the next meeting, I don't think I know we've done it before. We've blown past our annual review deadline in the past, so we've always been able to go back retrospectively. So what is the desire of the board?
So we need to provide a recommendation for compensation increase, right? Either the CPI or the 3%, right?
Right. The 3% contractually is a floor.
Is the floor.
Right.
And is the I'm sorry, I don't have the backup
It's
in front of me.
It's whichever is the highest. So it's either 3% or it's the CPI. So I provided the CPI from you. It comes out every 2 months. So in July, it was 5.1, and then just this month, it went down to 4.2.
So we have the discretion of 4.25 as the floor. Correct?
That's correct.
And then 5.1 was a recent CPI number. And is there anything else we have to do as part of this review besides saying, Joan, we really appreciate everything you're doing? You said there's a form. Do we have to do something else? Or we can just say, we recommend continuing with Joan and keep doing a 5% as an example. I think
you're
we
right.
can do that if that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
right.
I think we can do
So-
that here.
So the CPI is in the contract purposefully, because it kind of gives you some clear direction, but we have strayed from that in the past because, we, we've have shown that we value Joan and given more. So the question is, thank you. Are we collectively, are we able to come up with that tonight or? Okay. I'm not necessarily pushing to table. I just wanted to make sure everybody was comfortable. We have newer and we have incredibly old CRA board members. So, and old in term on the board. You're not- okay. So further discussion.
So I think last time we did this, there was a parade of like 25 public comments, and I think that's a plus for Joan that did not happen this board meeting. So kudos. But Joan is obviously weathered a heck of a year, built the relationships with the council that she needed to build, got us through to a place where we are not public enemy number one. We are a fully functioning CRA. And if it weren't for Joan, that simply would not have happened. And just the perseverance of her and the staff to get through what they got through this past year, I think just was yeoman's work. And so I think we're in a great place to, go with the 5% or something like that comfortably because of the heck of a year that we've been through, and Joan in particular.
Thank you.
I will say that one of the things that I think that we should recognize is that, when good or bad or indifferent, when the political winds shift and we have a major change on our commission, that is, just incredibly time consuming and difficult for staff. Not saying it's in a bad way, but they have to learn how to communicate and work with a totally new group of people than they had been working with previously. And I don't think we can overstate how much time that takes to develop that trust and that relationship that we all value in our personal and professional life. So, that was something. I mean, it's when you have one or two newly elected commissioner, that's one thing. When you have as many as we just had change, that's a very challenging thing. So I want to recognize Joan for that. And I know you touched on it as well, Drew. And I think that's an important part of this discussion though. Because previously we recognized Joan's effort in terms of we had additional revenue, we had the line of credit, and we were able to do a lot of acquisition. And that was another justification for, I believe, a deserved increase. And I think that while we had some of the same this year, I think that also, Joan and staff taking on that added workload deserves consideration. Further discussion.
Well, I'd be with Drew. I'd be happy around a 5%. I think that accurately reflects that we value the contributions and is a a reasonable step up.
Anybody else?
I value what Joan has brought to the table. And it's not just this year, but it's also going to be a difficult year going forward. And I think it's very important that everyone knows that she has our support because we feel she deserves it. You know, it's not just being in the position, it's knowing that she does the heavy lifting, you know, and she's done such an outstanding job that I think that not only does she deserve it, but it speaks for us to say that we've worked with her and she's done a good job and we support her. So I certainly think that we could go ahead tonight and make that decision. You know, it's not a difficult decision. If we have to, and I think that she clearly, it's worth it. You know?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carla. Okay. I think we're in a position to have a motion. Maybe.
Yeah, I'll move that we continue with the executive director's contract, acknowledge that our unanimous agreement on the annual review is that Joan is doing a wonderful job and she has our 100% support. And as an indication of that, we recommend a 5% increase in the salary.
I'll second that. This is Drew.
Okay.
And that as part of the motion, you authorize the chair to execute an amendment to her employment agreement to provide for that salary increase.
Yes, amending my long-winded motion that was still short of everything it needed. That we approve the chair the ability to authorize that increase.
Thank you. And the seconder amends their second.
Yeah, of course.
David, just as a point of clarification, are we in a position to take this out for a longer term with defined increases? Not that I don't like this, but I'm just.
The current term of the agreement is through August 31st, 2024. I mean, if you want to amend the salary provision, which is the provision that provides for the increase of 3% or CPI, you know, you can do that.
No, actually, I do value the discussion. I think Joan it deserves the feedback, so I withdraw that comment.
I'll say, I think one of the things that happened in the 80% sea change of our city commission was, there's a couple things. One was, One was the discussion of these properties, but another thing was that the city manager at the time hadn't been reviewed, I think, for several years, if I remember correctly. And that's, I think, something that voters may see as some kind of sign of a board that's not fulfilling all the duties that they would expect. So I think, I don't know how many of these I've been through. Every time we sing the praises and recommend an increase, I think it's okay if we do that every year. And at least if somebody tries to go back and check what we're doing, hey, we're following the protocols and we're giving the thumbs up. And every year we sit around as a group in public and discuss that we approve of what she's doing. So I think it's good to keep it. Sorry, Joan, if it's really awkward for everyone to say nice things about you for 10 minutes, but I think we need to do it at least once a year.
Having previously served on the board and survived at least 2 or 3 attempts to take over the commission, to take over the CRA, I will say that while I personally feel Joan deserves more, I feel it's a fair, and you know, I feel it's defensible as well for what that's worth. I mean, unfortunately, we have to look at both sides of that. But you know, I support the motion. So if we have no further discussion, All those in favor, please state so by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you, Joan, for all your work.
Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Now you can give us a report, please.
Before that,
Oh.
we're going to talk about Zoom.
Yeah, I'm glad I have everybody keep me on track today. If you're against the Zoom, turn your computer off now. So we have another action agenda item, which I guess is that F? What are we calling the Zoom? F, okay. In regards to continuing to have these meetings with Zoom or to go back to, let's call it normalcy. So let's open that up for, actually, let's just do a motion and have discussion. And is somebody in position to have a motion either way?
I'd like to move that we go back to normal situation. And I do want to ask some questions during discussion of
Sure.
what we may be missing out on, but my preference is to get away from having the same voice occur 3 times in my head.
Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second.
I'll
There is going to be discussion.
enthusiastically second that.
Second, okay, all right. All right, so we have a motion and a second and discussion regarding moving forward with going back to our normal meeting.
So I just wanted to ask Joan or David, is there something about maintaining the opportunity for people to join remotely or maintaining the opportunity for members of our board to join remotely that I'm not recognizing we still need to keep open?
Well, the reason that I really wanted the board to discuss it tonight is if we are planning on continuing with Zoom, I think there might be some investments that the CRA would like to make in order to get rid of those 3 voices in your head. And one of the reasons I think some of us would like to continue to be on Zoom is one, it does help board members who can't be here in person, but I think more importantly, it kind of, maybe not tonight, but sometimes it does make our meetings more available to the public than they normally would be. I mean, we did used to have, at least somewhere between maybe like 5 to 12 people in the audience. And that really hasn't changed that much. But it does make us more accessible to people who don't want to come over to the Hatch or come over to City Hall. And, the city does continue to have their meetings on YouTube. So we would kind of be following suit with them. But it's completely up to you guys, of course, with what you would
Can
like
I
to do.
ask how much it would cost to make this a multimedia thing that we could all just walk into and participate in?
Well, there's 2 costs. There's obviously the cost of buying some equipment for us to use, and then there's the cost of somebody having to keep a channel open and making it available to us. So that's kind of part of what we're going to bring back to at our next meeting as far as the website was concerned. There wasn't enough clarity for me to put it on this agenda, but one of the things that this particular website company that a lot of cities use is for us to be able to have regular meetings that are videoed and live at, also. And there's a yearly cost for that. And I didn't know whether to include that in the quote or not include it in the quote, but if it's something that the board would like to discuss and would, is willing to make the investment and then pay for those on an annual basis, then we can look at, how exactly that works. But it would take us contracting with another company to do it.
I would like to remind the board that pre-pandemic there was some discussion request. I don't remember who was driving those, but for us to hold our meeting in City Hall in the chambers because of the functionality So
Right,
think
but the
that-
problem with that, Chairman Lynch, is that when the city holds their meetings, they have IT and audio people who stay after work and do that, and they're not necessarily willing to do it for us. And there's also, now with COVID, there are, planks of plexiglass between all of the commissioners up there, and there's 5 commissioners and there's 7 of you, plus we have staff and David. So it's not like we can easily go back over to the city or go to the city at all. When we were at the city commission chambers, it wasn't like we had more people than we do when we had it at Hatch. The whole idea of having the meetings at Hatch was to try to get people to feel comfortable, with the western side of the community, and to come over and walk over or drive over if they have to, and see all the great things that we've been doing on in this particular area of the city. So that's why originally we really didn't want to go back to City Hall, but then to further kind of complicate that, there was well, who's going to run the audio and run all the computer equipment when we're there? That has to be city staff.
Thank you. No, I appreciate the overview, but just for the record, I'm quite comfortable here. I was just saying that there was some of that going on before the pandemic. I was against it, moving back, or, well, for me, it was back there. But so I think that if we can come up with a reasonable budget for consideration next meeting, I believe that we need to be able to make this meeting available to the public and be inclusive. I think it's a mistake to not do that. I think that as a board, we can decide that we want to be here and be present. But I don't think that we can limit David.
You have to be physically
thank you.
present. Yeah. At
Okay.
least, the
then there's
law
that.
has been that you have to have it's been interpreted, I should say, to have a physical quorum present. Historically, the ability of a commissioner not to participate from outside of the meeting was due to some emergency or medical issue, those kinds of things. But it's been broadened in light of COVID, which is understandable. But whatever you do, you still need to have a physical quorum present, which means at least 4 members if you do end up, moving down the line with the Zoom meetings on in the future.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I think if we are in agreement, I think that we should consider a motion to give direction to staff to look into the expense.
So first, I think I need to withdraw my motion to get rid of Zoom against Leah's preferences.
Or amend.
And I'll make a new motion to request staff to bring back the cost of making this something that is available and accessible for public to participate in via Zoom, but easier for us to do where we don't each have our own setup and all that stuff.
Great.
I could continue to second that.
Okay.
But with respect there too, at some point I went on the safe driving mode. So my phone thinks I'm in my car now. I didn't do that on purpose to show how bad I am at this, but I think this is going to have sort of my cheapness running up against my personal convenience, because if the cost to do it the way the city commission does, where they just show up with none of this madness, exceeds my inconvenience of popping these in and out of my head, I guess I'd reconsider my stance on Zoom. So
there is a cost-effective solution. I'm on several other boards, and we do it. I don't go to all those meetings, and so I know there's a cost-effective solution. Okay. Joan, are you comfortable with that motion?
Yes,
As far as
thank you.
clear direction? Okay. All those in favor, please. Or do I need to go to public on that? Emily, is there any?
There are none.
Okay. All those in favor, please state so by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Joan, please give us a report.
Sure. It's a little long, but I'll try to move as quickly as possible. 15 South E, which is the CRA owned property on the corner of E and Lucerne Avenue, has all of their permits. This is a development we're doing in conjunction with Mr. Juan Contin. So we will be closing on that property within the next 30 days. You might be familiar with the property next door. There's a redevelopment project going on with that as well. The owner of those two parcels next door, 1303 and 1305, are topping out their building, their 3-story building, which is right next door. In regards to 309, 311, and 313 Northeast Street, we were able to close with the seller for those 3 lots on Northeast Street. And we are setting a closing with the Community Land Trust in November to provide future affordable housing on those 3 different sites. They have both county and some private funds with which to build. So we will be coming back to you after we close with some designs. The Planning and Zoning Board approved a land use change at 710 and 706 South H. If you remember, these are 2 of the, I believe it's 16 or 17 properties that have been assembled by Mr. Gianola from Dixie Capital. So far on the corner of 6th and H and 6th and Dixie is the new Dunkin' Donuts, but he has plans, they're not finalized yet, that will include more retail and also a mixed use project. The land change allows the city to build a new substation farther south and leave the substation that's currently in the middle of his assemblage. And it actually helps the city a great deal because they continue to build the new substation while they keep the old one online. On your seats, when you came in, there's a new NAPC booklet that the CRA worked on for quite a while with the NAPC in producing. Those are available to obviously the NAPC and everybody along in the city. There's also a schedule of the Day of the Dead events for you. As you can tell, we've started already. And every weekend there should be events leading up to the big Day of the Dead event, which is on October 30th. The CRA was an award winner at the, what will be the FRA conference, the Florida Redevelopment Association. The conference takes place October 27th through 29th, and our project, the MID, won for outstanding housing projects. So some of staff will be going to the FRA conference and accepting that award. And I think that is it, Mr. Chair, except that I just wanted to say to the board that I think really, truly appreciate all of your support. It has not been the easiest of years, but I still feel like we have a lot of really important things to do in the city. And I also want to take the opportunity to thank every member of my staff, both full-time and part-time. I wouldn't be able to do this job and keep my sanity without them. So thank you. And also a big thank you to David for always being there and keeping me on track with his good advice. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
That's
Joan.
it. Mhm.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I got a question for Joan.
Yes.
So Joan, we have that property we picked up at K and First on the northeast side.
Yes.
But it's not part of the interlocal exploration, but are we thinking of waiting for that to get done before we figure out what to do with that piece of property?
Yes, I think that's probably in the best interest. We wouldn't want to move forward with proposing a development there until we kind of understand what the framework is for downtown with development.
That's what I would think too. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, board member comments? Carla? None?
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. Definitely. Caroline, welcome. I hope some of this made sense. I'm sure you're getting a little bit of a trial by fire trying to catch up with what all we're discussing, but really excited to have you on board. And I looked you up on LinkedIn. It sounds like you're in the planning space. So although we are going to miss Mark significantly, I'm really glad we have somebody that's a professional in this space joining the board. So I'm excited to have you on board, and I'm looking forward to working with you. Joan, again, thank you. And I think in running down your executive director's report, when we're looking at winning an award for MID, which is a wonderful product that's market rate housing, and we're moving forward on an affordable housing project right now in the residential on E Street. Just like seeing stuff happening on the south end of the corridor, 6th and Dixie is a part that I know it's always tough for us to penetrate. I think all those different irons in the fire speak to the work that's being done and navigating us through this upcoming Treasure Coast process is going to be a challenge, but I'm sure you're up to it. So thank you again for all your hard work. I'm glad we were able to move through your review tonight.
Thank you, Brent.
Yeah.
Still on driving mode. So harkening back to the beginning of the pre-meeting, I guess, I'd like to say we're doing a lot of great work with the Cultural Renaissance Foundation, and I really appreciate Emily and everyone's efforts in connection there too. Joan, I think the FRA award just goes to as a testament to the assemblage of staff and projects that you've put together, and congratulations to you and staff on that award. I'd like to echo my fellow board member here. Some of the development is really exciting. When you drive up and you see the Bohemian going up, I mean, it's going up fast, right? Is that just me, or is it like every time you drive by? So I have no doubt that we'll be getting a similar award from the MID to the Bohemian next year. So thanks all, and welcome to the board.
Thank you.
Caroline, your turn. Drew.
Welcome, neighbor. So I just echoing everything. It's always exciting after the executive director's report to see everything that's going on. But I really, I know what Joan and the Treasure Coast Planning Council went through to try to get the item for the interlocal teed up for the commission meeting. It was a lot of individual one-on-one meetings that were long. Every single one of them were long with the commissioners and challenging in and of themselves. So congratulations for getting that through. I think it's a testament given the public participation or lack thereof, that we are probably on the right path, Joan, and I know that was a lot of your effort. So congratulations for getting through that commission meeting. And other than that, thank you. Brendan, back to you.
Great, thanks. Caroline, welcome. I know that it can be a little overwhelming because we're talking about things that have kind of been in the works sometimes and things, but jump right in, and I know it's, I've had a great experience working with the CRA. I've been on the board I was on the board previously and came back. So we do great work, and, we fly low and stay off the radar, and we don't have to worry about elections, and and we get to be effective. That's the most important thing. So welcome, and thank you for joining us. Joan, as always, thank you for your hard work, and of course, the rest of the staff. Take a motion to adjourn.
Move adjourn.
Move adjournment. Seconded by Carlos. All those in favor, state so by saying aye.
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 Opposed? None. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.